So you can't continue to discuss your dreams with people with lower levels of intelligence or maturity. Why? I'm glad you asked. This is what we're talking about today. Brothers and sisters, when you begin to do this, you run the risk because their lower level of intelligence carries an energy. It has a frequency, Dave. And unfortunately for us, that frequency, if we continue to engage it, runs the risk, and we're talking about this today, of becoming a trauma to your body. So I'm going to talk science for a minute. It runs the risk, but I'm going to give you what it looks like. It runs the risk of becoming a trauma to your body. And what happens when it becomes a trauma? Your body then will respond. What does it look like? Your hormones that are supposed to be feeding you and making you feel good about your dream, now you begin to feel bad or have no hope about what could be. What am I talking about? Have you ever told yourself, now this is an internal thing, Ma, told yourself about your dream, and then you begin to be the one who offers something to unseat the vision of the dream. It looks like this. I'm going to be a billionaire. And then you hear a voice. Ain't nobody around. But your bank account is negative right now. Who just spoke that? It was you. What are you talking about? What happens is your subconscious mind, which is housed in your body, begins to attempt to unseat the vision that you have. When you get a clear picture of you having and owning all of these beauty supply stores, your body as a subconscious mind is going to speak to the vision of the beauty supply stores of you having keys in your hand, driving your Mercedes-Benz up to one of your stores. And your body as a subconscious mind is going to speak to you and say, but you got a link card. You can't even pay your bills. So right there, you're starting off with something you have to deal with, retraining the subconscious program. So here, what am I talking about? Other people. So when there are other people who are around you, once you begin to train your subconscious program to live the dream, the want, the wish, and the desire, you got to be careful with who you're talking to. Because their lower level of intelligence, Dave, carries an energy. That energy has a frequency. And that frequency can permeate you with your clairvoyant constructive behind. And then you dumb down. This is what it looks like. I'm about to step on your toes. Don't ask me to pray for him. Tim, you pray for him. You dumb down. And then you trying to figure out why you ain't got nothing. You better start talking to us dreamers. You better get in a conversation with me and Dave and Calvin and Dula and Tim and Layla and Mama and Catrice and Alvin. Are y'all seeing it now? You got to keep that connection, because if you keep talking to these people at a lower level of intelligence, you know what's going to happen? That frequency is going to permeate you and run the risk of becoming a trauma to your body. What is this trauma to my body he's talking about? I'm talking about the fact that now you're going to be again to speak to your dream and agree with them. And now what happens is you've taken on their energy, and now how are you going to bring your vision to pass when you just agreed with someone who had a lower level of intelligence? Oh, y'all need Bible. I know we in church. Let's go on to Genesis chapter 3. I don't have a slide for it. Keep that up. Genesis chapter 3, verse 7. What are we talking about? Y'all know that God had given Adam and Eve a commandment to not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? So what did they do? I'm not going to teach on this today, but Eve went ahead and she ate a little fruit. And she gave some, it's not an apple either, for those of you who are Bible scholars. Ate some fruit, and then she gave some of that fruit to her husband, and then he ate some. I did a teaching many years ago that he chose his boo that day. You know how we talk about the fact that people make us do things? Adam was not deceived, the Bible says. he actually chose to eat that fruit. And why did he do that, Dave? Because he loved Eve so much that he chose to be in the state of mind that she was also in. Now, here's where it gets funny. How is it that they ended up in that state? And what was the state that they ended up in? And why was it? Let's look at I'll start in verse 7. The eyes of both of them were open after they ate of the tree, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Naked? What do you mean naked? Did God tell them that they were naked? No, they was fooling around with someone with a lower level of intelligence. Let's just call God all-knowing. Why? Because he is. He's omniscient, omnipotent. He's all-knowing. So the concept of the mindset and intelligence level and maturity of all-knowing exists. And then we know that God made man in his image and after his likeness, which means that we carry the same or the potential for the level of intelligence that he is. Let's pause right there because I'm going to paint this picture for you. Look at verse 8. And they heard the voice of the Lord walking in the garden. Now, let me just clear this up. How's the voice of the Lord walking? Well, that word walking in the original Hebrew can also be translated coming. Okay, so don't get so caught up on the words and not do a word study and find out that it could have been translated another way. So they heard the voice of the Lord coming in the cool of the day, right? And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God amongst the trees of the garden. First of all, how do you hide yourself from God? What is the concept of hiding from God? Why would you hide unless you were afraid? Let me paint the picture. They hid themselves from the presence of the Lord that was approaching them or coming towards them. The presence of the Lord was literally the image of what they used to be. They carried the level of intelligence of all-knowing. They got caught up in a conversation with a serpent who was not all-knowing. Now, I'm not going to paint the picture that the serpent actually had one of these specific levels of intelligence, but I will share with you that he wasn't all-knowing. Because had he knew what was going to happen as a result of him getting them to eat, he would have also known that he had an impending doom, especially because of this. First, he was just cast down. But after he did this, then he said the seed of the woman will bruise the seed of the serpent, the heel of the seed of the serpent. So there was a punishment because of this. And had he known that Jesus the Christ was going to come into this dispensation with a kingdom mentality that advanced mankind back to the potential to be all-knowing, I'm teaching Dave, then he wouldn't have done it in the first place. So let's just say that the serpent was not all-knowing. But I will paint this picture to you that Adam and Eve had an all-knowing mentality, but they chose to engage with a lower intelligence. That lower intelligence, what did it do? It permeated. It had an energy. It was a frequency there. What the heck was she doing speaking with him in the first place? It's a serpent. Why she ain't kicking it with her boo? First of all, she left her boo for a minute. I'm not going to teach right there because y'all know I'm that Genesis piece. I get rolling on the inside of me. But she began to entertain and engage a lower level of intelligence. That lower level of intelligence carried an energy. She then, what did she do? She lowered or dumbed down in order to engage. So she's supposed to be fellowshipping with Adam, who's also all-knowing, and the Most High. That's it at the time. But she chose to engage a serpent. That serpent's energy, frequency permeated her as it became a trauma to her body. And she began to doubt. What did it say? Will you surely die? Who the heck questioned the Most High? Will you surely die? She left all knowing for a minute. Are you seeing it, Dave? You told me to explain this. She left all knowing for a moment that the lower energy state or frequency permeated her. It became a trauma in her body, and she began to feel a certain kind of way and spoke to her all-knowingness and dumbed down and gave some to her boo. Now, here the all-knowing is approaching them in the cool of the day. And they were affected by what happened. And they went and hid themselves from the presence of their reflection. The image of the Most High was approaching them. And they hid themselves from themselves. They hid themselves, or they were afraid of the potential of what they used to be. So here I am approaching you and continuing to tell you that you have potential to be a billionaire. And you know what you're telling yourself? Leave me alone with all of that. You challenging me. You're clairvoyant constructive. I've seen you tap into that intelligence level. I've seen you operate in that maturity state. But there's responsibility to it. You can't continue to dumb down, Dave, and talk to these basic, advanced, or even cardinal people. Because you might buy into it one day. And if you keep hanging around them, you run the risk of taking on what they're saying as a distraction, becoming a trauma to your body, you buying into it, and now you become in partnership against your own dream. What do you mean, partnership against my own dream? You got to stop allowing people to speak into who you are. I know you don't believe it. I can hold this image of myself already doing it. No, you can't. Because if you continue to engage them, you run the risk of believing it. And I don't mean believing it where you immediately buy into it. It's a subtle distraction. So stop dumbing down. That's the essence of this message. Maintain the modified state. Garner the higher level of intelligence. I'm sharing with you, don't shoot lower than being innovative. Because innovative is where Bible faith starts. Then start living your future in your present. Get that mental picture. Get it clear. What does it look like? I shared with you last week that if you don't know what you want, that's okay. I'll coach you into what you want. We'll start off by asking, what is it that bothers you? What is it that you can't stand in this earth realm right now? I can't stand the fact that these young women, I read a statistic that says 70% of all African-American women have been molested in some way. 70%? To some people, they take offense to that. It becomes something that they have a passion about. I don't ever want to see people put in a position that I want to make sure that mothers and fathers are together in their households. I want to teach relationships, because in it with relationships, if people understand how to engage one another and they have a child, they will then be in the position where they have two-parent households. And if you don't know anything about the statistic, most of the women who have been molested are in single-parent households. So it bothers you to the point. It sounds like you need to be dealing in relationship. You need to be dealing in formatting minds. You need to be dealing with helping people maintain a modified state of who they are, so they don't choose to allow their children, or they don't choose to put themselves in compromising situations. Now it sounds like we're getting to where you know what you want. What do you want? I want to be a person. I want to be an agent of change. What does she look like? What does he look like? Well, I know the biggest agent of change I know, someone who is really doing things and making things happen in the world in a female format, is Oprah Winfrey. What does Oprah Winfrey make? Well, she's worth about $3 billion, but she makes about $1.8 million per year. So now you have a picture. What does $1.8 million a year afford you? What type of house? Now start looking at houses that people that have that type of salary, what they live in. Now you're expanding your vision of what you are. You're not just looking at a house downtown, but you're looking at acres. You're looking at 20 to 30 bedroom houses where I don't need that much room. Then find something that you want. But it matches the income. It matches the net worth of somebody that's doing what you want to do at the max. The reason people are suffering is because they aim too low and hit. Shoot for the stars, and you'll get there. But you need to carry a level of intelligence that will get you there. You need a coach.